News English, your window to the world. Introduction. The world is full of noise and excitement, and news spreads very quickly. Have you ever wanted to know what is happening far away? Maybe you saw a short story online or heard about something big happening and wished you could understand it all. Or perhaps you wanted to talk to someone from another country and share ideas, understanding their thoughts. English is often the language people use to talk to each other all over the world. It helps us connect with many people and ideas. Learning a new language can feel like a very long race. Sometimes, the usual ways of learning can feel boring. You might look at grammar rules or lists of words that don't seem real. You want to do more than just learn words. You want to connect with others, understand things better, and live a more interesting life. You want to feel sure when you speak, understand what others say, and say your own ideas clearly. Now imagine being able to see and hear what is happening in the world and understand the conversations and cultures. That is exactly what reading and listening to English news can do for you. It is like having a window to the world. Books can feel old, but news is happening right now. It uses English the way people all over the world use it every day. This is where we start our adventure together. We will use a strong and useful way to learn called Learning English with News. It is a simple way to get better at English by using real news from good places like BBC, CNN, or the New York Times. Think of it as learning English by reading stories that are important to our world. It is not just about reading the main titles. It is a smart way to learn by doing. You learn words and grammar in a natural way, as they are used in real stories. This makes them easier to remember and use. This method helps you get better at listening, reading, and understanding different ideas all at the same time. The good things about this way of learning are amazing. You will find words and phrases that people are using right now. They talk about everything from new technology and government to art and sports. This gives you a lot of different words to use. Learning words in a story makes them stay in your mind better than just memorizing lists. When you listen to news readers from different countries, you learn to understand different ways of speaking and how fast they talk. This is very important for talking to people in real life. Reading news stories helps you find important information quickly, understand long sentences, and see different writing styles. This makes you a more confident reader. But news is not just about facts. It is also about how people see things and how they understand events. By reading news from different places, you learn to see problems from many sides. This helps you think more deeply and understand the world better. This is how English truly becomes your window to the world. Also, learning about things you like makes learning English much more fun and not like hard work. News is always changing, which keeps things new and exciting. This makes you want to learn more. You learn English as real people use it in real situations, not from made-up examples. In the next parts, we will help you step by step. We will show you how to find good news places, how to read and listen to news to learn the most, and how to use this method every day. You will find smart ways to learn, fun things to do, and advice to help with any problems. We promise to help you change how you learn English. So, are you ready to open your window to the world and start a more fun and better way to learn English? Let's start exploring the exciting world of news English together. 1. Learning English with news. Imagine you want to know about the world, but only have old maps. It wouldn't feel real. Books teach us the basics of a language, but real talk happens now. That's where news is exciting. News sources are like live windows showing you what's happening everywhere, right now. Learning English with news is a great way. It's called news-based language learning. It makes your English practice feel real and connected to the world. A book might teach you how to buy coffee. That's good. But news helps you understand talks about the weather changing, how people feel about new discoveries, or how sports stars win. It's about real things people care about. This makes learning more interesting. When you want to know about a story, you want to understand it. This wanting helps you learn. A big good thing about news-based language learning is that it's real. The English you hear or read is what people actually use. It's not made just for learners. You learn real phrases and how people talk. This is better than book English, which can sound a bit strange. When you learn from news, you get the real thing. You hear and read what millions use every day. This makes your English sound more natural. This real use is great for words. Books often give you word lists to learn. It's hard to remember words and use them when they are alone. News stories and reports show new words in a story. This is very helpful. For example, you might read about a country with a drought. The story will explain what a drought is. It might say rivers are dry or farmers have trouble. You don't just learn drought. You understand it in a real situation. You see how it affects people and places. Learning words like this makes them stay in your mind. It also helps you know how to use words in different ways. News talks about many things: leaders, phones, science, art, sports, health, and more. You will learn words for many topics, making your English useful in many talks. Listening to and reading news often also makes you understand better. News readers speak at a normal speed. They have different voices. Articles have long sentences and many words. At first, it might seem hard. You might not know every word. But this is where you learn. Every time you listen or read, your brain gets better at understanding English faster. You start to hear the flow of spoken English. You get better at guessing word meanings from the sentences around them. You read faster and feel more comfortable with longer texts. This practice helps you understand not just words, but the whole message, the feeling, and even the emotions. It's like giving your ears and eyes a good workout. More than just language skills, news-based language learning opens your mind to the world. News from different countries can show the same event in different ways. For example, a political event in one country might be reported one way by its own news and another way by news from another country. Seeing different views is very useful. It teaches you that there isn't always one right answer. Understanding different views helps you understand world problems. Looking at things from many sides helps you think more carefully. You learn to ask questions, think about things, and have your own ideas. And all this happens while you get better at English. You learn more than words. You learn about different cultures, people, and how our world is connected. This link between learning language and knowing the world is a main idea here. Let's think about how news happens now. This makes it better for learning than old book exercises. Books are good for basics, but they often show language in a fixed way. A talk about going to the market might be correct, but it might not be how people shop today. News, though, is always changing. New words might show up. Science might bring new words. World events can change how we talk about things quickly. When you use news, you learn the living, breathing language of today. You learn current language use, making your talk more useful and up-to-date. This changing nature of news means your learning is always new and exciting, like the world it talks about. What about learning words and stories from news instead of just memorizing lists? Imagine learning about space travel by just knowing words like astronaut, rocket, orbit, and galaxy. It's a start, but it's boring. Now, imagine reading a news story about a new trip to Mars. You'll see astronauts called brave explorers, the rocket as a strong vehicle, orbit as a path around a planet, and galaxy as a huge group of stars. Suddenly, these words have meaning. You understand their place in the story. Learning words this way is like planting a seed in good soil. The word is not just a single piece of information. It's linked to a situation, an event, and a feeling. This makes it easier to remember the word later and, more importantly, to use it correctly. You learn not just what a word means, but how to use it. This real use builds fluency and confidence. Besides grammar and words, what other skills does watching and reading news help you build? And why are these skills important for talking with people around the world? Well, it's more than just words and sentences. When you listen to news, you hear different accents. This is very important for global talk because people from everywhere speak English, and they all have their own way of saying words. Getting used to these differences makes you a better listener. Reading news, especially about hard topics, also helps you understand not just what is said, but why it's said and what the writer wants you to believe. This builds your thinking and analysis skills. You learn to spot bias, understand different ideas, and form your own good opinions. These skills are not just for learning English. They are for becoming a more informed and active person in the world. Being able to understand different views and share your own ideas clearly and well is the heart of global communication. News gives you the perfect practice for these important skills. By using the changing world of news, you are not just learning English. You are building a way to understand talks happening all over the world. In the next part, we will look at how to use these powerful tools to help you learn language. 2. Improving listening and reading. Many people learning a new language feel this way. They learn grammar rules, they learn new words, but when they hear people speaking the language or try to read something, it still feels strange, like a different language. Books are good for starting, but sometimes the words in them sound too perfect, too slow, or not like the real language spoken by people. This is where reading or watching the news can help. It's like leaving a quiet room and going into a busy city where the language is alive. Imagine a person named Sarah. For months, Sarah studied her English course carefully. She knew her verbs and how to make sentences. But when she watched the news on TV or read something online, her mind felt stuck, like trying to walk through thick mud. The words came too fast, or they were words she had not seen before, even if the topic was something she knew well. She started to feel sad, wondering if she would ever really understand people who speak the language well or read English easily. Then Sarah decided to try something new. She remembered hearing that using the news can help learn English. At first, it felt a little scary. She found a news website that used easier words and started with short news videos. She did not think she would understand everything, but she tried to catch the main idea. She would watch a short video, then try to tell herself what she understood. She chose topics she liked, like sports or technology. Slowly, things started to change. She noticed she was understanding more words. She began to guess the meaning of new words by looking at pictures and listening to how people spoke. She found that the more she practiced, the easier it became. This is the power of using the news to learn English, using what is happening in the world to make your English skills stronger. One big reason why using news is good is that it is real. News reports and articles use the English that people actually use every day. It is not made just for people learning the language. This means you hear and read the language as it is used in normal life. When you hear someone talking about a new discovery or an important event, they use the words and phrases that are common for that situation. This is very different from simple talk in books that might sound like, "Hello, how are you? I am fine, thank you." While this is helpful for very new learners, it does not prepare you for how people really talk. News, however, is full of life. It uses common sayings, different sentence shapes, and shows feelings and ideas, just like real talks. When it comes to listening, news is a great teacher because you hear many different voices. Imagine watching the news from the United Kingdom. You will hear a clear, often standard British accent. Then, watch news from the United States, and you will hear American accents, which can also be different depending on the area. Or you might listen to news from other parts of the world and hear reporters with accents from many places. This variety is very useful. At first, it might be hard to understand different accents. But with practice, your ears get better. You start to notice the sounds, the rhythm, and the common ways of speaking from different English-speaking places. This helps you listen better to anyone, whether they are from London, New York, Sydney, or anywhere else. You learn to understand English in many ways, not just one. Hearing different accents and ways of speaking is a key part of learning English with the news. It helps you understand spoken English in a strong way that is more than just one book or one accent. By listening to news from different places, you train your ears to be more flexible and to notice small differences in how people speak. This is not just about understanding words. It is about understanding the small ways people talk. For reading, news articles have many new words. Instead of learning words alone, you see them in real stories about actual events. This is a much better way to learn. For example, if you read about a new science discovery, you will likely see words like study, find, test, proof, and decide. You will see how these words are used together to tell a story. Learning words like this helps you understand not just what a word means, but also how it is used in a sentence and with what other words it is often seen. This helps the word stay in your mind much better. You are not just memorizing a meaning. You are seeing the word in action. Learning new words this way is a main part of using the news to learn English. It is more than just memorizing. It is a deeper, more natural understanding of the language. When you learn a word in a story, you also learn the words around it, common phrases with it, and how it is used in sentences. This deeper understanding makes it easier to remember and use the word later. It is like learning about a plant by seeing it grow in nature instead of just looking at a picture of it in a book. As you read or watch news, you naturally start to get better at understanding. When you listen to a news report, your brain tries to find the main point. What is the story about? Then, it looks for smaller details that explain the main point. If you do not understand every single word, you learn to guess the meaning of unknown words from the sentences around them and the main topic. This skill, called guessing meaning from the situation, is very powerful for both listening and reading. You become like a detective, putting together clues to understand the whole story even if some parts are missing. These ways of understanding are not just for news, they are important skills for understanding any English. Using the news to learn English helps you use these skills. You might stop a video to think about what the reporter just said, or read a part again to be sure you understood the main idea. You might even try to say what you read or heard in your own words. This active learning makes you better at the language. One of the best parts of using news to learn English is the increase in your confidence. When you understand a news report or an article, even if it took some work, it is a real success. You know that you can do it. You can understand real English. This feeling of success is very encouraging. It makes you want to keep practicing, to find more difficult things to read or watch, and to continue learning English with more energy. Sarah, our made-up learner, felt this herself. The more she practiced with the news, the more she understood, and the more she understood, the more sure of herself she felt. This confidence is a strong power for learning more. So, how can you actively use news to learn the most? It is not just about watching or reading without thinking. Think of it like being a detective or a student who is actively studying something. For listening, try these steps. Listen once for the main idea. Do not worry about every word. Just try to get the main topic and the most important news. What happened? Who was part of it? Listen again for details. Now, try to get more specific information. What are the facts that support the main idea? What are people saying about what happened? Use written words if you can. Many news websites and videos have written words you can read. Listen while reading, or read first and then listen. This helps connect what you hear with what you read. Write down new words or phrases. Keep a notebook or a digital note. Write down words or phrases you do not know, but also words that are used in an interesting way. Try to guess their meaning from the situation first, then look them up. Tell it in your own words. After listening, try to explain the news story in your own words, either by speaking or writing. This helps you check if you understood and practice using the words you heard. For reading, you can do something similar. Read the title and the first part. These usually tell you the main story. Look through the article for important words. Look for names, places, and important actions. Read more carefully, focusing on understanding. If you find a word you do not know, try to guess its meaning from the sentences around it. If you still cannot figure it out, then look it up in a dictionary. Mark or draw lines under important sentences. This helps you focus on the main information. Tell it in your own words. Write a short explanation of what you read. This is a great way to check if you understood and practice writing. The natural speed and difficulty of news language can indeed be harder than typical learning materials. Books often make language simpler to make it easier to understand, using shorter sentences and more common words. News, however, shows the real world, which is often more complex. Reporters might use more difficult words, longer sentences with many parts, and speak faster. But this difference is exactly what makes news such a strong learning tool. It makes you grow. To make this easier, it is important to break down the content. When listening, do not be afraid to stop, go back, and listen again. If a sentence is too fast, listen to it many times. Try to copy the way they speak. For reading, you do not need to understand every single word to get the main idea. Focus on the main message. If a sentence is long and difficult, try to find the main subject and the main action. Understanding how sentences are built is as important as knowing individual words. Many news websites offer articles at different levels, from simple summaries to more detailed reports. Start with the simpler ones and move to more difficult texts as you get better. The best ways to actively use news content involve making it a two-way process. It is not just about getting information, it is about working with it. Writing notes is a great method. Writing down important facts, names, dates, and new words makes your brain work harder to understand the information. Explaining it in your own words, as mentioned, is another excellent method. Whether you write it down or say it out loud, explaining requires you to put the information together and express it in your own words, which shows if you understood it. You can even find someone to practice with and talk about a news story you both read or watched. Explaining it to someone else, or talking about different ideas, will make your understanding stronger and help you practice speaking. By regularly using news sources in this active way, you are not just learning English, you are developing skills too. Think carefully and gaining a wider understanding of the world. You are using a method that connects learning language directly with knowing about the world. The skills you built here, the ability to listen carefully, read critically, and understand different views, are very valuable. They are the skills that will truly open your window to the world. 3. Expanding vocabulary with events. Learning new words is like finding special treasures. Each word you find helps you see and talk about the world in a new way. When you use English news to learn, you don't just find words, you find them where they are used. This is a big part of learning English with news. It means using real news stories to learn and practice English. You learn not just what words mean, but how people all over the world use them every day. Think about this. A word in a book might just have a short explanation. It's like seeing a map of a city without walking its streets. But when you read about something in the news, the word is right there in the middle of what's happening. You see it in sentences with other words that help explain what it means, how it feels, and why it's used. This is like a helpful guide showing you around the word. It makes the word easier to understand and, more importantly, easier to remember. For example, imagine you see the word protest. If it's just in a list, it might seem unclear. But if you read a news story about a peaceful protest where people held signs and sang, or another story about a violent protest with fights and broken windows, you see how the word protest changes with what happens. You learn that peaceful and violent often go with protest, which helps you understand how people show their feelings in different ways. This is how context makes words come alive and helps you remember them. Every event in the world has its own set of words. News about a meeting between leaders, for example, will use words like talks and agreements. You'll read about leaders trying to agree and make important choices. These words help you understand how countries work together. Now, think about a different event, like a big storm hitting a town by the sea. The news will then use words like leave and help. You'll learn about people needing to go to a safe place, the mess left by the storm, and the help that comes to fix things and support those who were affected. By reading about different kinds of events, you naturally learn many useful words for different topics. You don't just learn random words. You learn words that are linked to real things happening in the world, making your English more useful and interesting. News stories also do something great that a simple book often can't. They show you the hidden meanings and words that often go together. Words have different shades of meaning, like different colors. A book might tell you the main color, but the news shows you how that color looks in different lights. For example, the word break can mean many things. You can break a bone, break a promise, or break a record. News stories help you see which words often go with break to make these different meanings. You learn that break a promise is a common way to say someone didn't do what they said they would. You also learn about common phrases that might not make sense if you translate them word by word. News often uses these phrases naturally, so by reading, you start to understand them. This makes your English sound more natural and helps you understand conversations and other news better. You begin to learn not just what a word means, but how it feels and how it is usually used. Let's look at a specific example. Imagine you followed the story of the Mars rover missions. At first, you might know words like rocket and planet. But as the mission went on, you would see new words. You might read about the sending off of the rocket, the path it took through space, and the landing on Mars. Then, you would learn about the rover itself, its tools, its solar panels, and its goals. You would read about scientists looking at the information sent back, searching for signs of old life or water. If there was a problem, you might hear about computer issues or the need for remote checks. Now, how do you get these new words and make them yours? It's like being a detective for words. When you read a news story about something that happened, keep a special notebook or a digital list. When you see a word you don't know or one that seems important to the story, write it down. Don't just write the word, write the whole sentence from the news story where you found it. This sentence is the context, the clue that helps you understand. Then, try to find a simple meaning for the word. You can use a dictionary for learners that explains words in easy English. After that, the most important step is to use the word. How can you use it? Try writing your own sentences. For the Mars rover example, you could write, "The mission's goal is to find signs of water." Or scientists are happy about the new information. You can also try to use the word in talking if you are learning with a friend or a teacher. Another good way is to make cards. Write the new word on one side and its simple meaning and the example sentence from the news on the other. You can then test yourself often. The more you see, write, say, and use the word, the more it becomes a part of your own English words. Let's imagine someone named Anya who wanted to get better at English. She was very interested in a big art show in a large city. She decided to read the news about it. At first, she saw words like artist, picture, and museum. But as she read more, she started to learn new words. She read about the person in charge of the show, who chose the artworks. She learned about great artworks that were shown and how they were moved carefully to the museum. She read about the fancy party for important guests at the start of the show. She also saw words like statue, display, and modern art. Anya's way of learning was simple but worked well. She used a notebook. When she read an article about the show, she would stop and mark any word that was new or seemed important. For example, she saw the word evocative. The article said, "The artist's use of color was very evocative, bringing memories of childhood to mind." Anya wrote evocative in her notebook and the sentence. She then looked up evocative and found it means bringing strong images, memories, or feelings to mind. She then tried to write her own sentence. "The music made me think of a peaceful forest." She also looked for pictures of the artworks online and tried to describe them using the new words she was learning. She talked about the bright colors and the detailed patterns of a certain painting. As the show went on, Anya read about how people felt about the art. Some people found it thought-provoking, while others found it inspiring. She learned that challenging art might make you think in new ways, and inspiring art might give you new ideas or feelings. She even read a review that used the word nuance, explaining that the artist showed great nuance in showing human feelings. Anya looked up nuance and learned it means a small, subtle difference in meaning, expression, or sound. She realized that the artist wasn't just showing happy or sad feelings, but all the small, subtle feelings in between. Anya's words grew not just with single words, but with an understanding of how those words could be used to describe complex ideas and feelings. She wasn't just learning English. She was learning to enjoy art and culture more by reading the words used to describe it. This way of following an event and collecting its words is a main part of learning English with news. It is active, it is interesting, and it is connected to the real world. You don't just memorize lists of words. You see them in use, understand their meaning in context, and learn how they fit with other words. This makes your learning journey much more effective and enjoyable. You start to see English not as something to study, but as a way to understand and connect with the world around you. And as you build this collection of words, you also start to notice how different news places might describe the same event using slightly different words, which leads us to the interesting topic of understanding different points of view. 4. Understanding ideas and opinions. News is more than just a list of things that happened. Think of it like a story. Every story has facts, but it also has the feelings and ideas of the person telling it. News is the same. When you read a news story, you get facts, but you also get the thoughts and opinions of the writer, the people they talked to, and the news company. This is very important for learning English with news, learning to see the ideas and opinions hidden in the words. When you start learning English with news, you might just focus on the main facts. Who did what? This is a good start. But to really understand the world and speak English better, you need to look deeper. You need to understand the ideas behind the facts. Why did this happen? What do people think about it? What are the different opinions? Imagine something happened, like a big change in a city, such as a new park being built or an old building being torn down. Two different newspapers might write about it. One might say, "Great new park opens, making families happy." Another might say, "New park plan causes problems for local shops." Did they write about the same event? But do they feel the same about it? This is because they show different ideas and opinions. So, how do we find these ideas and opinions? It's like being a detective. You need to look for clues in the words. A big clue is the words people use. Words have power, and the words a writer chooses can show their own feelings or the feelings of people they quote. For example, if a news report says, "Protesters demanded change," the word demanded sounds strong, like they were very firm. If it said, "Protesters asked for change," it sounds softer, less urgent. Think about words that show feelings or beliefs. Words like believe, think, feel, hope, fear, suggest, claim, argue, criticize, support, praise. When you see these words, they often show an opinion is being shared, not just a simple fact. For instance, if a news article says, "Some experts believe the economy will grow," it means this is a thought or guess from a group of people, not a sure thing. Also, pay attention to words that describe things. Is the park beautiful or ugly? Is the decision smart or silly? Words that describe something very positively or very negatively are often opinion words. For example, if a newspaper calls a new law a great step forward, that's a strong opinion. If another newspaper calls it a dangerous move, that's also a strong opinion, but the opposite. This is where learning English with news is really helpful. You don't just learn new words, you learn how those words are used to show different viewpoints. You build your word list and understand how language is used in real life, in real talks. Now, let's talk about different viewpoints. Imagine you were looking at a mountain. From one side, it might look very tall and rocky. From another side, it might look smoother, with green trees. It's the same mountain, but it looks different depending on where you stand. News stories are like that. Different news places might have different views or perspectives. Why do they have different views? Many reasons. Who owns the news company? Sometimes, the owners have certain ideas about the world, and they want their news to show those ideas. Who reads the news? Some news is for people in a specific country, while other news is for people everywhere. They might focus on stories that are more important to their readers. What kind of news is it? Some news is very serious and about government, while other news is more about fun or sports. The focus changes. When you read about the same event from two or more different news sources, you'll often see they focus on different things. One might talk a lot about how an event affected money, while another might talk more about how it affected people's feelings. This isn't necessarily bad. It's just different. Learning to see these differences is a big step in understanding. It helps you see the whole picture, not just one small part. This idea of framing is very interesting. Framing is like putting a picture in a frame. The frame doesn't change the picture, but it can change how you see the picture. In news, framing means how the story is presented. The headline, the title of the article, is a big part of framing. A headline like "City Happy About New Library" makes the event seem good. A headline like "Library Project Loses Money" makes it seem bad. The first paragraph, the very beginning of a news story, often sets the mood and tells you what the writer thinks is most important. The pictures, photos can strongly change how you feel about a story. A picture of happy children playing in a park makes it seem like a good place. A picture of trash on the ground makes it seem different. The sources. Who does the writer talk to? If they only talk to people who are happy about something, the story will seem very positive. If they talk to people who are unhappy, it will seem negative. By paying attention to how a story is framed, you start to understand the ideas and opinions that the news place wants you to notice. This is a key skill in learning English with news. You are learning to read between the lines, to understand not just the words, but the message they are trying to send. Let's go back to Maria, who is learning English and uses BBC and CNN to practice. She reads a story about a new law in a country. The BBC article focuses on the government's reasons for the law, quoting officials who say it will help the economy. It uses words like initiative, progress, and opportunity. The feeling is quite neutral, reporting what the government says. The CNN article, however, focuses on protests against the law. It talks to people who are worried about their jobs and their rights. It uses words like controversial, concern, and unrest. The feeling feels more urgent, showing the unhappy reactions. Maria was confused at first. But it's the same law, she thought. She asked herself, how does the language used in these news reports show the author's or publication's opinion on the topic? She noticed the BBC used words like initiative and progress, which sound good, like the government is doing something smart and helpful. CNN used controversial and unrest, which sound bad, like people are unhappy and there might be problems. She realized that even though both wrote about the same law, the BBC seemed to agree with the government, while CNN showed the side of the people protesting. They were presenting the story differently. Then she asked herself, if I read about this same event from a different news source, what different ideas or opinions might I see, and why? She understood that the BBC likely wanted to show how their readers might see the law as a good step, perhaps because their audience is interested in world events and economic growth. CNN, with a global audience, might be showing the conflict and how it affects people because that often gets attention and shows a different side of the story. Finally, she looked for specific phrases and asked, what specific phrases or sentences show that this is an opinion and not a fact everyone agrees on? She found them. On the BBC, phrases like the government said that this initiative is expected to show that this was what the government said, not necessarily a proven fact. On CNN, phrases like critics argue that the new law will lead to clearly showed that these were the opinions of the critics. By doing this, Maria wasn't just getting better at English words. She was learning to think carefully about the news. She was using learning English with news not just to understand English words, but to understand the world. She learned that news reports are not always just facts. They are often built on ideas and opinions. This is a very important skill. As you get more comfortable with English news, you'll start to notice these small differences everywhere. You'll see how a headline can make you feel a certain way before you even read the article. You'll understand why one story might focus on the success of a project, while another focuses on the problems. The goal isn't to say one news source is right and another is wrong. It's about understanding that different people and different groups have different viewpoints, and they use language to show those viewpoints. By reading from many sources, you get a much fuller and more complete picture of what's happening in the world. You learn that truth can be complicated and that there are often many sides to a story. This ability to see different ideas and opinions is a powerful tool. It helps you not only understand what others are saying, but it also helps you form your own thoughts more clearly. When you understand the different viewpoints shown in the news, you can start to form your own informed opinion. You can decide what you think based on a wider understanding of the situation. By learning to pick apart the opinions in news reports, you gain a powerful tool not just for understanding the world, but also for making your own voice stronger. This ability to look at and combine different viewpoints is crucial as you move on to actively taking part in talks and sharing your own informed thoughts, which we will look at in the next part. Conclusion. We are now at the end of our journey. Thank you for opening your mind to the exciting world of news and using it to learn English. You have seen how headlines, stories, and voices from around the world can be your best English teachers. Think about all the new words you have learned, the different ways people speak, and the interesting events you have discovered. This is not just about making your English better. It is about seeing and hearing the world more clearly and understanding how language connects everyone. The main idea of what we did is called learning English with news. It is a very simple idea. Instead of just using old books, you are using English as it is spoken and written today by real people about real things happening everywhere. This way of learning is strong because it is always new and important. When you learn a new word from a news story about something you like, you remember it much better than a word from a list. You see how the word is used, you understand its meaning from the story, and you connect it to something real. This is the best part of learning English with news. It is useful, it is interesting, and it truly helps you understand the world. What does this mean for you? It means your listening will get better with every news report you hear, even if you do not understand every single word at first. You will start to hear the flow of spoken English and get used to different ways of speaking. Your reading will also improve as you understand sentences and ideas from writers and experts. You will find your words growing naturally with words that are actually used in talks and discussions today. More than just English, you will start to understand different cultures and how people see the world. News shows you many different views, helping you think more deeply about the stories. All of this will make you feel more sure of yourself. You will become someone who can learn on their own, able to explore English and the world in your own way. And because news is often exciting and important, learning feels less like hard work and more like an adventure. Now, the real fun starts with you. You have the power to keep learning. The world does not stop, and neither does the news. Every day brings new stories, new words, and new chances to connect with English. Find the news sources and topics that make you curious. Whether it is sports, science, art, or government, let your interests lead you. Remember, this window to the world is always open, waiting for you to look through. Do not be afraid to read articles again, listen to broadcasts again, or look up words you do not know. Every step you take makes your skills and understanding grow. So, what are you waiting for? Open a news app, turn on a broadcast, or go to a news website right now. Let the world teach you, one story at a time. Your English journey is just starting, and the world of news is your constant, exciting friend. Happy learning!